The movers were carrying out Lily's bed when I pulled into my driveway, her purple butterfly sheets still clinging to the mattress like ghost wings. My mother-in-law stood on the porch directing them with the efficiency of a general, her pearl necklace catching the afternoon sun as she pointed toward the moving truck. I sat in my car for exactly 3 heartbeats, watching them dismantle my daughter's sanctuary, before I realized Margaret had planned this. She'd waited until the exact moment I'd be at the cemetery, the one time each week she knew I'd be gone for hours. "Oh good, you're home," Margaret said as I walked up the path, not even bothering to look guilty. "We've made excellent progress. Jason's baby will need this room by Christmas, and I thought it best to start fresh." I stopped at the bottom of the porch steps, my hand still clutching the small bouquet of daisies I'd forgotten to leave at Lily's grave. "Jason's baby? Due December 15th, she announced, supervising as 2 men struggled with Lily's bookshelf. "Finally, a grandchild to carry on the family name. We're turning this into a proper nursery, none of that purple princess nonsense." The words "purple princess nonsense" hit me like physical blows. Lily had picked every inch of that room's decoration during her last good month, when the cancer had retreated just enough to let her dream about the future she wouldn't have. "Where's my husband?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. "Thomas is at work, obviously. Someone has to pay for all this." Margaret waved dismissively at the movers. "I told him I'd handle everything. No need to bother you with details during your grief." I walked past her into the house, pulling out my phone. The living room was in chaos, boxes labeled "Donate" and trash lined the walls. Lily's artwork, the drawings she'd made during chemo, were stacked carelessly by the door. "Careful with those," I called out as a mover reached for the drawings. "It's just childish scribbles, Veronica," Margaret said, following me inside. "We need to focus on the future now, not cling to the past." I turned to face her, really looking at her for the first time since I'd arrived. She wore a new suit, expensive, and her wedding ring had been upgraded, the diamond now substantially larger than I remembered. "When did Jason tell you about the baby?" I asked. "Last month. He and Jennifer have been trying for ages." She smiled, the kind of smile that made me understand why Thomas always looked exhausted after family dinners. "Of course, they're not married yet, but that's just a formality. Not like your situation with Thomas." "Our situation? Well, you can hardly expect him to stay in this mausoleum forever." She gestured around the house. "A man needs living children, Veronica. Not shrines to the dead." I felt my phone buzz. Thomas, texting. "At work late. Hope cemetery visit was healing. Love you." "He doesn't know about this, does he?" I said, watching Margaret's face carefully. "Men don't understand these things. They need us to make the hard decisions." She picked up one of Lily's stuffed animals, a worn elephant named Mr. Peanuts. "This can go to charity. Some living child might enjoy it." I took Mr. Peanuts from her hands. Lily had slept with him every night, even in the hospital. Even on the last night. "Margaret," I said slowly, "did Jason happen to mention anything about his medical history when he shared this wonderful news?" She frowned. "What medical history? He's perfectly healthy. Unlike." She trailed off, but we both knew she meant unlike Lily. "The vasectomy he got 3 years ago?" I watched her face shift. "When he and his first wife decided they didn't want children, Thomas went with him for the procedure. They made a whole weekend of it. Golf trip to cover the recovery time. That's ridiculous. Jennifer's ultrasound. Oh, I'm sure Jennifer's pregnant." I scrolled through my phone, finding the family group chat. Just interesting timing, don't you think? Jason divorces Melissa, immediately starts dating Jennifer, and suddenly there's a miracle baby. Margaret's perfectly composed face cracked slightly. "Are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything." I pulled up another app on my phone. "But since you're so interested in the future, let's talk about housing arrangements. You are aware that this house is in my name, right?" "The family home should stay in the family," Margaret said stiffly. "It is in the family. My family. My grandmother left it to me. Thomas moved in after we married, but the deed never changed." I showed her the property records on my phone. "So while I appreciate your initiative in helping Jason prepare for fatherhood, he'll need to find his own nursery space. This is Thomas's home. This is my home. Thomas lives here because I love him and we're married. But that doesn't give you the right to dismantle my daughter's room while I'm visiting her grave." A mover appeared in the doorway. "Ma'am? The lady said to ask you about the toy chest? It's heavy, gonna need both of us." "Put everything back," I said firmly. Everything goes back exactly where it was. Now wait a minute, Margaret started. No, you wait. I stepped closer to her, close enough to smell her expensive perfume, the same scent she'd worn to Lily's funeral. Do you know what I was doing at the cemetery today? I was telling my 6-year-old daughter about her cousins. About how Jason might have a baby soon. About how she would have loved being the big cousin, teaching them about butterflies and rainbows and all the things that made her happy. Veronica. I was explaining to a headstone why Grandma Margaret never visits. Why Uncle Jason stopped coming to the hospital after the diagnosis. Why the only family photos from last year are from before she got sick because you said she looked unfortunate, with no hair. Margaret's face had gone pale beneath her perfect makeup. But sure, I continued. Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about Jason's miracle baby with a woman he's known for exactly 8 months. Let's talk about how you were so eager to erase my daughter that you couldn't even wait for the grass to grow on her grave. I'm trying to help. Margaret burst out. This house is a tomb. You and Thomas drift around like ghosts. He needs to move on, start fresh. Men weren't meant to grieve forever. He's grieving his child. She wasn't his blood, Margaret snapped, then immediately looked like she wished she could swallow the words. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the movers had stopped, sensing the shift in atmosphere. What did you just say? I asked quietly. I didn't mean. Lily wasn't his blood. I nodded slowly. That's what this is about. She was my daughter from my first marriage, so she doesn't count. She was never really a Harrington in your eyes. That's exactly what you mean. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. God, it all makes sense now. The separate Christmas gifts. Lily's were always just a little smaller. The family photos where she was always slightly to the side. The way you introduced her as Thomas's stepdaughter, instead of his daughter. Biology matters, Margaret said defensively. Jason's baby will carry on the family name, the family blood. That's important. You know what else is important? I pulled up another app on my phone. Security cameras. Did you see them when you drove up? We installed them everywhere after Lily got sick. She was terrified of someone breaking in while she was too weak to run. Margaret's eyes darted to the corners of the room, finally noticing the small cameras. Everything's recorded. Everything's backed up to the cloud. I smiled grimly. Including this conversation. Including you admitting you planned this for when I'd be at the cemetery. Including you calling my dead daughter's room purple princess nonsense. You're being dramatic. No, I'm being practical. Just like you. I turned to the movers. Gentlemen, please put everything back exactly as it was. I have photos of the room if you need reference. Mrs. Harrington will be leaving now. I'm not going anywhere until Thomas. Thomas is about to get a very interesting phone call, I interrupted, already dialing, with a link to the security footage. Let's see what he thinks about his mother dismantling his daughter's room. Yes, Margaret, his daughter. Because that's what she was, regardless of blood. The phone rang once before Thomas picked up. Hey, honey. How was the cemetery? Eventful, I said, maintaining eye contact with Margaret. Your mother's here. She has some interesting news about Jason and a nursery. What? Mom's at the house? I thought she was, he paused. Wait, what about a nursery? I'll send you the security footage. You might want to sit down first. I watched Margaret's face cycle through emotions. Anger, embarrassment, and finally something that might have been fear. Veronica, what's going on? Thomas's voice was sharp now, concerned. Your mother decided to clean out Lily's room. For Jason's baby. While I was at the cemetery. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, she what? I'm handling it, I assured him. But you might want to come home. And maybe call Jason on the way. Ask him about that vasectomy reversal he must have gotten. I'm leaving now. His voice was cold in a way I'd rarely heard. Mom, if you're listening, don't move. Don't touch anything else. Don't speak. I put the phone on speaker so Margaret could hear clearly. Thomas, I was trying to help, she started. I said don't speak, he roared. My daughter has been dead for 4 months. 4 months. And you're gutting her room? What is wrong with you? She needs to move on. I need to move on. I need to. His voice cracked. That's my little girl's room. That's where I read her bedtime stories. That's where she told me she loved me for the last time. That's where. He stopped, and I could hear him trying to control his breathing. 20 minutes. I'll be there in 20 minutes. He hung up. Margaret stood frozen, her perfect composure finally shattered. He didn't mean. Yes, he did. I sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. You know what the worst part is? Lily loved you. Even when you made it clear she wasn't really family, she loved you. She made you a card for your last birthday. It's probably in one of those boxes you labeled trash. Margaret glanced at the boxes, something flickering across her face. Purple construction paper, I continued. She spent hours on it. Glitter everywhere. She was so weak from chemo, but she insisted on making Grandma Margaret a special card. Without a word, Margaret walked to the boxes and started searching. She found it in the third box, sandwiched between coloring books and art supplies. The purple card was covered in shaky handwriting and approximately half a container of glitter. To Grandma Margaret, she read aloud. Thank you for being in our family. Love, Lily. Margaret's hands shook as she held the card. She made you part of our family, I said quietly, even though you never made her part of yours. The movers finished returning the last piece of furniture as Thomas's car screeched into the driveway. He burst through the door, still in his work clothes, his face a mask of controlled fury. Mom, he said, his voice deadly quiet. Get out. Thomas, if you'd just listen. I'm done listening. I'm done with your subtle jabs about Lily not being real family. I'm done with your obsession with biological grandchildren. He walked to Lily's doorway, touching the frame gently. She was my daughter. In every way that mattered, she was my daughter. I know you loved her, but... No buts. Thomas spun around. She called me Daddy. She ran to me when she had nightmares. I held her hand through every treatment, every procedure. I was there when she took her last breath. Don't you dare tell me she wasn't my real daughter. Margaret clutched the purple card to her chest. I just wanted you to have a future. My future died 4 months ago, Thomas said brokenly. Part of it, anyway. The part where I got to watch her grow up. Graduate. Get married. Have kids of her own. That future is gone. Jason's baby. Can have their own room. In Jason's house. With Jason's money. Thomas walked to the door and held it open. Leave. Now. And if you ever touch anything in this house again without permission, you'll never see us again. You don't mean that. Try me. His voice was steel. Veronica is my wife. This is her house. Lily was our daughter. You've disrespected all 3 of those facts today. Margaret looked between us, perhaps finally understanding what she'd destroyed. She walked to the door, still holding Lily's card. The card stays, I said firmly. She handed it to Thomas, who took it like it was made of spun glass. Without another word, Margaret left, her expensive heels clicking down the walkway. Thomas and I stood in the sudden silence, surrounded by boxes and displaced furniture. He walked slowly to Lily's room, taking in the half-restored space. I'm sorry, he whispered. I should have known she'd do something like this. You couldn't have known. She's been hinting. About moving forward, about Jason's girlfriend, about fresh starts. He picked up Mr. Peanuts from where I'd set him down. I just never thought she'd be this cruel. What about Jason's baby? I asked gently. Thomas laughed bitterly. There is no vasectomy reversal. I golf with Jason every month. He's terrified of being a father. Always has been. If Jennifer's pregnant, it's not his. Your mother's in for an interesting Christmas then. She can spend it with Jason and his miracle baby. We won't be there. He pulled me into his arms, burying his face in my hair. I'm so sorry, Ver. She had no right. We spent the rest of the evening putting Lily's room back exactly as it was. Every stuffed animal, every drawing, every book returned to its place. Thomas found the butterfly mobile Lily had made in art therapy and rehung it by the window. As the sun set, painting the room in soft purple light, we sat on Lily's bed together. The space still smelled faintly of her. Strawberry shampoo and vanilla lotion, the sweet smell of childhood cut short. She would have been a great big cousin, Thomas said quietly. The best, I agreed. She would have taught them all about butterflies. And rainbows. And how to make the perfect glitter card. He smiled through his tears. Even for grandmothers who didn't deserve them. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Jennifer. Jason's girlfriend. Could we talk? I think there's something you should know about the baby. I showed Thomas the message. He sighed, looking older than his 35 years. Tomorrow, he said. We'll deal with that tomorrow. Tonight, we sat in our daughter's room, surrounded by purple walls and butterfly dreams, holding each other in the space between grief and whatever comes after. Outside, Margaret's car was long gone, but Lily's purple card sat on the dresser, still shedding glitter like fairy dust, a testament to a little girl who loved more generously than she was loved in return. The room would stay exactly as it was. Not a shrine, but a promise. A space held sacred in a house that was ours, in a family we chose, for a daughter who was real in every way that mattered. And if Margaret ever understood that, it would be a miracle greater than any suspicious pregnancy or fresh start could ever be.